For decades, I struggled as an artist, creating paintings that never sold and dreams that seemed always just out of reach. 16 years ago, I poured my soul into one masterpiece, a painting that I believed could speak to the world, but it remained tucked away in the shadows of my small studio. Last night, fate played a cruel twist. While serving champagne at an upscale gallery for extra income, I froze mid-auction. There it was, my painting, being sold for $330,000. But the person presenting it as her own work, my daughter-in-law, Samantha, I could have confronted her instantly, but something inside me whispered patience. Instead of exposing her immediately, I realized I could orchestrate a plan far more satisfying, turning years of quiet suffering into a dramatic, unforgettable triumph. My name is Eleanor Whitman. I am 52 years old. 16 years ago, I poured my soul into a painting that I believed could define my career, yet life had other plans. I worked tirelessly in my tiny studio, each brushstroke filled with hope, emotion, and raw passion. The masterpiece, vibrant and haunting, captured a part of my life I never fully understood until I saw it take shape on the canvas. But as time passed, the painting was stored away, hidden among dusty canvases, as the world remained unaware of my talent. I often wondered if anyone would ever see it, if anyone would understand the depth of emotion I embedded within those colors. Even now, the memory of creating it brought a mix of pride, nostalgia, and quiet longing for recognition I had been denied for so long. For years, I struggled to break into the art world, sending countless paintings to galleries that ignored or rejected me. Each rejection letter felt like a quiet sting, a reminder that my work, my heart poured onto canvas, seemed invisible to the world. I questioned my talent, doubted my purpose, and wrestled with despair, but the love for painting never left me. Even as I faced mounting bills and responsibilities, I clung to the hope that one day my work would be seen, appreciated, and respected. Each failed submission and ignored email strengthened my resolve rather than weakening it, embedding in me a quiet persistence and resilience that would later become my secret weapon in confronting betrayal. To make ends meet, I took odd jobs that had little to do with art, from teaching painting classes to waiting tables at small cafes. Each day was a balancing act between survival and creativity, often leaving me exhausted yet determined. My dreams seemed perpetually out of reach, buried beneath piles of responsibilities and financial pressures. Yet, even in these moments, I returned to the canvas whenever I could, sketching in stolen hours and storing my work in boxes and closets. The act of painting remained my lifeline, my solace, and my quiet rebellion against a world that refused to recognize me. I told myself that one day, the universe would notice, and my patience would pay off. My masterpiece, the painting I loved most, sat untouched for years in storage, hidden behind old canvases and covered in dust. It was my secret treasure, a piece that reflected every ounce of emotion, struggle, and hope I had felt in my life. I often peeked at it, running my fingers lightly over the textured surface, remembering the passion of its creation. The world may have forgotten it, but it remained a monument to my dedication and artistry. Even as I doubted if anyone would ever see it, the painting reminded me that my work mattered, that my talent existed, and that someday, the story embedded in that canvas would demand acknowledgement. One afternoon, my daughter-in-law, Samantha, visited my home, chatting casually about life and family. Unaware of my hidden treasure, she admired my small collection of recent sketches and encouraged me to keep painting. I smiled politely, carefully hiding the existence of the masterpiece stored away in my studio. A pang of irony struck me as I realized that this woman, who would later claim my work as her own, had no idea of the talent and years of dedication I had poured into my art. That day, the seeds of a silent rivalry unknowingly planted themselves, setting the stage for the shocking revelation that would come years later.
Months later, I heard whispers about a prestigious gallery hosting a high-profile auction. The names of wealthy collectors and famous artists floated through the community, sparking both excitement and anxiety in me. I hesitated, torn between fear and desire, unsure if attending could lead to recognition or heartbreak. Memories of past rejection and struggle made me wary, but a flicker of hope burned within me. Perhaps, just perhaps, this gallery could be the first place where my work would finally be seen by the right eyes, a moment to claim validation for decades of effort, passion, and perseverance. In a bold and unexpected decision, I chose to take a temporary job at the gallery, serving champagne and assisting with the event to stay close to the art world. It was a small role, humble and behind the scenes, but it placed me in the perfect position to observe, understand, and prepare. Every time I walked the gallery halls, surrounded by wealthy collectors and glowing paintings, I felt a mix of nostalgia, longing, and anticipation. I had no idea that this simple job would set the stage for a shocking discovery, one that would forever change the course of my life, my art, and my relationship with Samantha. Eleanor stood among the glittering crowd at the upscale gallery, serving champagne with a smile that masked the whirlwind of emotions inside her. Wealthy collectors, critics, and art enthusiasts moved elegantly through the rooms, discussing paintings with admiration and critique. Every glance at the artwork made her heart ache with longing, knowing that her own creations had never received this kind of attention. She maneuvered carefully, pouring drinks and exchanging polite conversation, all the while scanning the room, her eyes drawn to each canvas with a mixture of professional interest and personal attachment. Little did she know, one painting tonight would stop her in her tracks, a piece from 16 years ago that carried not only her artistic soul, but also the potential for an emotional reckoning she had never anticipated. As Eleanor carried a tray through the crowd, her eyes caught a flash of color and texture that felt uncannily familiar. Her breath caught as she realized the painting approaching the auction stage bore the same style, the same brushwork, the same haunting intensity she had poured into her masterpiece so long ago. Heart pounding in her chest, she tried to stay composed, forcing herself to move gracefully among the guests while mentally grappling with disbelief. Could it really be her work? Every detail, the shading, the composition, the emotion, resonated deeply with her memory. Her hands shook slightly as she placed a glass on a table, feeling the weight of recognition, realizing that something she had thought long forgotten was suddenly thrust into the spotlight, beyond her control. Eleanor's heart raced uncontrollably as reality settled in. The masterpiece she had created 16 years ago was being sold at this gallery, but not under her name. The auctioneer praised the piece, introducing it as the work of Samantha, her daughter-in-law, claiming full authorship and creative ownership. Shock, disbelief, and a surge of betrayal washed over Eleanor in waves. She stood frozen, clutching the champagne tray, unsure whether to speak or run. The realization that someone she trusted, and who shared her family, was taking credit for her labor, passion, and soul left her reeling. Every memory of creating that painting, every late night and sacrifice, collided with the stark injustice unfolding in front of her, leaving Eleanor stunned and grappling with the weight of emotional and artistic theft. Samantha, radiant and confident, presented the painting with poise, describing its history and significance as though she had painted it herself. Eleanor watched in silence, feeling a mixture of fury and disbelief. Her own words, which could have corrected the story, caught in her throat. The injustice of Samantha taking credit for her life's work, for every brushstroke, every choice, every emotional investment, was nearly unbearable. Eleanor's mind raced through every possible reaction, every confrontational option, but she understood that any impulsive action could backfire, not just professionally, but personally. Her deep love for her family battled with the desire for justice, leaving her heart pounding and her mind spinning as she considered how to reclaim what was rightfully hers without sacrificing her composure. Frozen in place, Eleanor felt her emotions collide. Shock, anger, disbelief, and sorrow mingled into a heavy, almost paralyzing weight. The audience around them was oblivious to the personal storm unfolding, focused only on the auction and Samantha's confident presentation. Eleanor's body felt tense, her muscles tight, her mind oscillating between confrontation and careful calculation. She realized the enormity of what had been done, a personal betrayal intertwined with the theft of her artistic identity. Yet beneath the emotional turmoil, a flicker of clarity emerged. This was not just a moment of pain, it was an opportunity. If handled wisely, she could reclaim her work, her reputation, and ultimately turn this shock into a decisive, empowering strategy. Thoughts of confrontation flashed vividly through Eleanor's mind. She imagined storming the stage, shouting the truth, and exposing Samantha in front of the elite audience. But experience, patience, and a long history of strategic thinking reminded her that immediate action could be disastrous. The gallery's reputation, the observer's perception, and her own dignity had to be preserved. Eleanor weighed every possible reaction, realizing that the most satisfying resolution would require careful planning rather than impulsive fury. Her pulse slowed slightly as determination replaced panic. She decided that she would reclaim her art, not through embarrassment or rage, but with calculated precision, ensuring the world would finally recognize her brilliance while leaving Samantha powerless to deny the truth. As the auction continued, Eleanor stepped back, hiding her emotions behind a polite smile while her mind raced. Every detail, the audience, the gallery staff, Samantha's movements, was carefully logged for the perfect moment of revelation. She began mentally crafting a plan that would expose Samantha, reclaim her artwork, and restore her long-denied recognition. Patience, timing, and evidence would be her weapons. Rage alone would not suffice. Eleanor's pulse steadied, replaced with a quiet fire of determination. Tonight was the beginning, not the end. The stage was set for a dramatic, cinematic confrontation that would leave Samantha exposed and Eleanor victorious, but only if she executed her strategy flawlessly. Eleanor moved gracefully among the gallery guests, her eyes scanning the room for every detail. She noted influential collectors, critics, and gallery staff, silently marking who might serve as allies when the truth was revealed. Every handshake, every whispered comment became part of her mental map, a catalog of potential witnesses and supporters. Samantha, radiant and confident, remained unaware of Eleanor's growing awareness, moving from one guest to another, presenting the painting as her own. Eleanor's heart raced, but her expression stayed calm, masking the storm within. She realized that timing and strategy would be everything. Observing patiently, she collected crucial information about who would believe her, who could corroborate her story, and who might be swayed by the undeniable evidence she would soon present. Every glance was a piece in her unfolding plan. Eleanor quietly began gathering proof of her authorship, retrieving dated sketches, old notes, and photographs of her painting in progress. Each piece became a vital part of the story she needed to tell. She handled each document with care, aware that a single mistake could undermine her credibility. These tangible traces of her creative process were irrefutable evidence of the countless hours, emotions, and dedication poured into the masterpiece. Eleanor's mind raced with plans on how to present this material effectively to both the gallery and influential witnesses. She understood that evidence alone was not enough. She needed a carefully orchestrated reveal that would make Samantha's false claim impossible to defend. Every document was another weapon in her strategic arsenal. As she handled her collection of sketches and notes, Eleanor reflected on the creation of the masterpiece 16 years ago. Each memory, the choice of colors, the brushstroke techniques, the late nights alone in the studio, reinforced her ownership of the work. She remembered the emotional turmoil, the small victories of getting the composition right, and the personal growth embedded in each layer of paint. These recollections added context to her evidence, strengthening her confidence that her narrative would be undeniable. Eleanor realized that Samantha's audacity to claim credit had inadvertently created the perfect stage for Eleanor to reclaim her identity as an artist. Her past work, long hidden, was now the centerpiece of a strategic confrontation that promised vindication. Eleanor discreetly approached a trusted gallery staff member, Julian, and quietly shared her proof and the story behind the painting. Julian's eyes widened as he examined the sketches and notes, immediately recognizing the authenticity and the clear chronological documentation. He offered guidance on how to position the evidence and whom to inform first, emphasizing patience and discretion. Eleanor felt a surge of reassurance. She was no longer facing this challenge alone. Having an ally with credibility inside the gallery allowed her to plan a methodical reveal that would maximize impact while minimizing risk. The subtle guidance gave Eleanor a sense of control, transforming her anxiety into calculated determination. Meanwhile, Samantha continued to present the painting confidently, explaining its creative origins as if Eleanor did not exist. She mingled with guests, receiving praise and admiration, completely oblivious to the storm brewing behind the scenes. Eleanor observed silently, feeling a mixture of frustration and anticipation. Every smile, every compliment Samantha received fueled Eleanor's resolve to act with precision. She realized that exposing her daughter-in-law impulsively would be less satisfying and potentially harmful to her own reputation. By waiting and planning, Eleanor ensured that when the moment arrived, the revelation would not only vindicate her, but also deliver a lesson Samantha could not ignore. Patience had become Eleanor's secret weapon. Eleanor spent the evening mentally rehearsing the perfect way to reveal the truth. She imagined presenting her dated sketches, notes, and photographs while authoritative witnesses confirmed her story. In her mind, she visualized Samantha's reaction, the gasps from the audience, and the undeniable acknowledgement of Eleanor's authorship. Every detail, from timing to delivery, was meticulously planned. Eleanor's pulse quickened, but her expression remained composed, as though she were just another guest at the gallery. This visualization solidified her confidence, transforming anxiety into strategy. Eleanor understood that the perfect reveal required patience, clarity, and presence of mind, and she was ready to execute it flawlessly. As the auction continued, Eleanor's plan solidified. She carefully positioned her evidence and allies, silently waiting for the opportune moment. The gallery's energy, the crowd's attention, and Samantha's unawareness created the perfect storm for her strategic reveal. Eleanor's heart pounded, but her mind was calm and focused. Every potential obstacle had been considered, every reaction anticipated. The scene was set for a dramatic confrontation that would not only reclaim her masterpiece, but also expose Samantha's deceit in a way that left no doubt. The suspense was tangible. Eleanor knew that within hours, her patience and preparation would culminate in a moment of triumph, but only if she executed every step perfectly. Eleanor carefully orchestrated a private viewing, inviting influential collectors, gallery officials, and a few trusted witnesses who could validate her authorship. She chose a quiet room away from the public auction floor, ensuring no interruptions and maximum attention on the painting. Each invitation was delivered discreetly, emphasizing the importance of seeing the original artist's proof firsthand. Eleanor's pulse raced as she imagined the reactions of both the gallery officials and Samantha, unaware of the storm about to unfold. She positioned sketches, dated photographs, and notes strategically around the room, creating a chronological story of her work. Every detail was deliberate, from lighting to seating, ensuring the evidence could speak for itself. This careful planning gave Eleanor a rare thrill, anticipation mixed with the satisfaction of finally reclaiming control. Eleanor calmly presented her documentation, walking her audience through sketches, studio photographs, and dated notes that meticulously proved she painted the masterpiece 16 years ago. Each page, each image reinforced her story and dismantled Samantha's false claim. Eleanor's voice remained steady, confident, and authoritative, projecting the quiet power of a woman who had endured years of struggle and betrayal. The gallery officials leaned in, examining each piece of evidence with curiosity and growing admiration. Eleanor carefully highlighted her creative process, showing every step of development, from preliminary sketches to the finished painting, leaving no ambiguity about authorship. Samantha shifted uncomfortably, sensing the shift in control, realizing for the first time that Eleanor's evidence was impossible to challenge. The gallery officials and collectors were stunned. Murmurs filled the room as they absorbed the undeniable proof of Eleanor's authorship. Questions immediately arose, and skeptical glances at Samantha began to show doubt. The evidence left little room for interpretation. Eleanor had meticulously documented every step, and the timeline was indisputable. Staff members whispered among themselves, amazed at the thoroughness and clarity of Eleanor's presentation. Collectors who had been excited to purchase what they thought was Samantha's work now began reconsidering, impressed by Eleanor's dedication and artistry. The shock spread quickly, creating tension and anticipation as Eleanor maintained her composure, knowing that the true confrontation was about to unfold, and Samantha's carefully constructed illusion was starting to crumble. Samantha attempted to explain, stammering through excuses, claiming coincidence and prior ownership. Her confidence wavered as Eleanor calmly countered each point with dated evidence, step by step. The witnesses nodded, reinforcing Eleanor's claims, leaving Samantha increasingly flustered. Every attempt at justification only highlighted her deception. Eleanor observed quietly, her heart steady but fierce with satisfaction, realizing that patience and strategy had put her in the perfect position. The very people who had applauded Samantha moments ago were now scrutinizing her claims, shaking their heads in disbelief. Eleanor's calm authority contrasted sharply with Samantha's panicked energy, creating a clear narrative. The masterpiece belonged to Eleanor, and there was no room left for denial. Eleanor walked the audience through the timeline, pointing to sketches, studio photographs, dated notes, and drafts that matched the final painting exactly. She showed her meticulous records of brushwork, materials, and the evolution of her ideas. Every step reinforced her ownership and exposed the impossibility of Samantha having created the work herself. The gallery officials nodded, some visibly impressed by the depth of Eleanor's preparation and commitment. Even skeptics could see the irrefutable evidence, and Samantha's earlier bravado began to fade. Eleanor's careful pacing and professional delivery ensured that no doubt remained. Her authorship was beyond question, and Samantha's false claims were collapsing under the weight of indisputable proof. Samantha's composure shattered as whispers filled the room. Her confident smiles and casual gestures disappeared, replaced by unease and embarrassment. The witnesses and officials now clearly aligned with Eleanor, validating her story and reinforcing the undeniable truth. Samantha's attempts at rebuttal faltered, and her face reflected the realization that she could no longer manipulate the situation. Eleanor maintained her calm, projecting quiet power, aware that the months of planning, patience, and preparation had brought her to this moment of victory. The shift in authority was palpable. The audience recognized who truly deserved credit for the masterpiece, and Samantha's arrogance crumbled, leaving Eleanor fully in control of the narrative. With Samantha exposed and the gallery officials convinced, Eleanor felt the thrill of impending triumph. Yet she knew the story was not over. One last step remained to fully reclaim her work, secure recognition, and transform years of betrayal into a lasting victory. She glanced at the painting, at Samantha's stunned expression, and at the witnesses who now stood firmly on her side. Every detail of the final reveal had been anticipated, and Eleanor's mind raced through the concluding steps that would ensure her art, her name, and her dignity were fully restored. The anticipation was electric, the tension unbearable, and the stage perfectly set for the dramatic climax that would define her legacy.
If you want to see how Eleanor finally reclaims her masterpiece and exposes Samantha completely, hit that subscribe button and stay tuned. You won't believe what happens next.
Eleanor didn't want to humiliate Samantha publicly. Instead, she orchestrated a plan that would ensure her own recognition while keeping her dignity intact. She arranged for the painting to be officially showcased under her name at a prestigious exhibition, inviting influential collectors, critics, and gallery officials. Every detail was meticulously planned, from the lighting to the placement of the artwork, to highlight its emotional and technical brilliance. Eleanor stood beside the painting, calm and poised, letting the authenticity of her creation speak for itself. Samantha watched silently from the sidelines, suddenly aware that all her confidence and false claims were irrelevant in the face of Eleanor's undeniable artistry. Eleanor's strategy had worked perfectly. She had turned a moment of potential confrontation into a powerful, dignified victory. As the exhibition began, collectors and art enthusiasts quickly realized that Eleanor was the true artist behind the masterpiece. Questions about the painting's provenance were answered effortlessly with Eleanor's meticulous documentation, including dated sketches, studio photographs, and notes detailing her creative process. The gallery promptly corrected the auction records, ensuring that all credit went to Eleanor. The shift in the room's energy was palpable. Admiration and respect for Eleanor replaced the earlier attention Samantha had received. Her years of dedication, patience, and strategic planning had finally paid off. Eleanor felt a wave of satisfaction as she saw critics and collectors appreciating not just the artwork itself, but also the story of perseverance, talent, and integrity that had brought it into the world under her rightful name. Samantha, once confident and radiant, now stood frozen, powerless to intervene. Every person who had previously praised her was now recognizing Eleanor's authorship, and whispers of disbelief and admiration spread through the room. Eleanor observed calmly, feeling no need to gloat. The satisfaction came from knowing that the truth had finally emerged. Samantha's silent presence was a testament to Eleanor's measured and patient approach. The humiliation was real, undeniable, but delivered without aggression. Eleanor's triumph was rooted in intelligence, strategy, and restraint, highlighting that true victory didn't require confrontation, only clarity, evidence, and timing. In this moment, Eleanor reclaimed not only her art, but also her authority and dignity, leaving Samantha exposed and powerless in front of the audience. With her authorship officially recognized, Eleanor immediately began to leverage the attention and acclaim she had earned. Galleries that had previously overlooked her now reached out, offering new exhibition opportunities and commissions. Collectors who had admired the painting sought to purchase other works, and critics praised both her talent and the integrity with which she handled the situation. Eleanor had not only reclaimed her masterpiece, but also strengthened her professional reputation and financial stability. Samantha could only watch as Eleanor's career gained momentum, fully aware that her deception had failed and that Eleanor's meticulous preparation had turned years of struggle into a well-earned victory, setting the stage for long-term recognition and success. Friends, neighbors, and fellow artists celebrated Eleanor's vindication with heartfelt enthusiasm. Her small studio, where countless hours and emotions had been poured into her work, became a symbol of resilience and triumph. Every toast, congratulatory message, and shared smile reinforced the journey she had endured, from obscurity, struggle, and betrayal to recognition and empowerment. The art community that once ignored her now applauded her talent, patience, and strategic brilliance. Eleanor's success was no longer just personal. It had become a story of inspiration for everyone who had faced challenges, setbacks, or unfair treatment. Her vindication was not only a restoration of her rightful place in the art world, but also a celebration of perseverance, dignity, and grace. Eleanor chose to use her experience to guide the next generation of artists, sharing lessons learned from betrayal, patience, and strategic thinking. She mentored younger painters, showing them how to document their work, protect their creativity, and navigate the competitive art world with both skill and integrity. Her story became a source of inspiration, demonstrating that talent alone was not enough. Resilience, foresight, and composure were equally vital. Eleanor's mentorship extended beyond technique, emphasizing courage, strategic planning, and emotional intelligence. By helping others turn adversity into opportunity, she transformed her personal victory into a legacy, ensuring that her hard-earned wisdom would empower future artists to claim their rightful recognition. In the final moment of her journey, Eleanor walked confidently into her new exhibition, every eye drawn to the masterpiece she had created 16 years ago. The betrayal, struggle, and long years of obscurity had all been transformed into a cinematic triumph. Eleanor's presence commanded respect, her dignity intact, and her artistic genius recognized. Samantha's deception was fully exposed, leaving her powerless as Eleanor received the accolades she deserved. The audience applauded, critics praised, and collectors admired the undeniable brilliance of Eleanor's work. Years of struggle, betrayal, and silence had culminated in ultimate empowerment. Eleanor had not only reclaimed her art, but also her life, legacy, and authority, proving that patience, strategy, and resilience could turn the deepest injustices into a lasting, well-earned victory.